Hello and welcome to the course of Material Science and Manufacturing Process. This is our 16th lecture, and in the last lecture we are talking about mold and mold making, and this is the second lecture of that same part, that is mold and mold making. So let's start our lecture with lecture objective. In this lecture we will be studying about the type of the molding, what are the different kind of the mold, and what are the type of the molding means what are the type of the different type of the molding processes that we will discuss. Then we will discuss about different kind of the mold, there is various kind of the mold, and we will see about core and core print and why the core is used, what are the function of the core, that we will discuss in this lecture. Now let's start our lecture. That there are various types of the molding, but there are some specific molding, that is our molding of our interest. Those are first hand molding. Hand molding are used for odd casting, generally less than 50 number of casting. And in hand molding, that hand molding you have done in the uh, MSMPL lab. Okay, now this hand molding is in this hand molding the ramming is done by using hand only, and this hand molding takes is more time taking and not so economical. But in case of small casting, in case of if you want to make two or three products, okay, from one casting, at that time hand molding is very suitable. But if you need to do more than means large number of manufacturing, large number of product, if you need to make large number of product, at that time machine molding should be done. And the machine molding, what is machine molding? Machine molding are used for simple casting to be produced in large number, and in machine molding ramming is done by machine, so it requires less time. Next, bench molding. What is bench molding? In bench molding, the molding is done on a bench of a convenient height to the molder and used for small casting. So, in case of bench molding, it is done on a bench at some height from the floor. In case of floor molding, the molding is done on the foundry floor, and it is used for medium and large casting. Okay, so bench molding, this the molding or the casting experiment you have, for that type of small object we can take the bench molding as an option. But mainly this bench molding is used for casting of intricate shape, okay, or very complex shape, such as ornaments, such as toys. For this type of casting of this type of object, what we need to do, we generally use bench molding. But for medium and large casting, what we use floor molding. In floor molding, that is floor molding is done in a foundry in a floor molding is done in a floor of the foundry. Pit molding, so pit molding is done for very large casting. So there, in case of pit molding, the mold cavity is a pit that is made in the ground. Okay, so for pit molding, the type of pit molding what you have seen, you have seen, I guess you have seen some concrete slabs, right? So those concrete slabs are made by using pit molding. So in pit molding, the molding is done in a pit, and that pit acts as a drag, and it is used for very large casting. Okay, now the what are the characteristics that should a mold should have? A mold should have the desired shape and size, and it must be produced with due allowance for shrinkage of the solidification of the material, and any geometrical feature that is desired in the finished casting must exist in the mold cavity. So these are the properties of the mold cavity, right? So mold cavity should have the desired shape and size. It should be produced with due allowances such as shrinkage allowances for solidification of the metal, and any other geometric feature that is desired in our finished product, that should exist in the mold cavity, and consequently the mold material must be able to reproduce the desired detail. So the mold material should be like that, it can reproduce the desired detail, and it should be of refractory character, so that it does not contaminate the molten material. So refractoriness is nothing, means refractory means by application of heat there should be no change. So if there is no change, then we say that the material is a refractory material. But if there is any change in mechanical property, or in thermal property, or in chemical property, if there is any change, then that is not suitable, not a suitable refractory material. But if there is no change, then it is called suitable refractory material. So the mold and the mold must be made from the material that can withstand for repetitive use. So mold should be made uh, from a material that can be used for repetition, used in repetition. So there are various types of mold, but the main two types are expandable mold and permanent mold. Expandable mold means those can those can be broken after single casting, after each and every casting. And the permanent mold, what are permanent mold? Permanent molds are made of metal or graphite and used repetitively for large number of casting, which do not break upon solidification. So there are two types of the mold. First is expandable mold. In case of expandable mold, what happen? In case of expandable mold, we have to break the mold after each and every casting. But in case of permanent mold, the mold is not broken after each and every casting. So that is called permanent mold and expandable mold. So there are another type of the mold. First one is open mold and closed mold. In case of open mold, the molding material is molten material is poured directly into the mold, like this figure. Sorry, like in this figure, this is open mold. Here it is your cast molten material or cast metal. And in case of closed mold, the mold cavity is completely closed. See here, mold cavity is completely closed. This is called closed mold. Now the type of molding, there are the various types method of molding. First one is sand molding. Sand molding, in case of sand molding, hand ramming is preferred method of the mold making. And if there is few casting has to be made in for any given design, and some of the small foundry still make their mold by hand molding. And in most cases sand molds are made by specially designed molding machine. And the various molding method differ in the following aspect: what are the type of the flux required, and the method of packing the sand within the flux. So whether the mechanical assistance is provided to turn or handle the mold, in all cases of the molding machines greatly reduce the labor and skill required, and give casting with better dimensional accuracy and consistency of the molding. Usually begins with a pattern and a flux. uh, Sand is generally packed in the flux by following basic technique. So in case of machine molding, the molds are produced by machines for mass production casting. A molding machine performs following functions. So what are the functions that molding machine can perform? First, filling of sand. Second, ramming of sand. Third, lifting of pattern from the mold. Fourth, rolling mold section. And the following are the main molding machine. So there are various molding machine, but blotting machine, squeezing machine, sand slinger, diaphragm molding machine, stripper plate machine, and these are known as molding machine. And machine molding requires mounted pattern, and it is faster and more uniform than our bench molding or floor molding. So machine molding is more accurate than hand molding. So how the method works? So combination of gelatin and squeezing is often used to produce the uniform density throughout the mold. Then a match plate pattern is positioned between the cope and drag section of the flux, and the assembly is placed upside down on the molding machine. Now parting compound is sprinkled on the pattern, and at the top section of the flux is filled with the sand. The entire assembly is then jolted at a specific number of time to pack the sand around the pattern. So these are the method of mold making by using molding machine, right? Now the entire now a squeeze head is then swung into the place, and the pressure is applied to complete the upper portion of the mold. Next, after the one portion is over, the flux is inverted, and this whole operation is repeated on the cope half, or the cope and drag can be made on separate machine by using cope and drag pattern. And for smaller mold, molding machine usually provide mechanical assistance for inverting the heavy mold, and getting system and runner can be hand cut, or can be made into the pattern itself. And after completing the mold, tapered flux tapered flux may be removed to prevent possible damage of the flux during pouring. And as the leaf jacket, an inexpensive metal band may be positioned around the mold to hold the sand in place, and the heavy metal weights are often placed on the top of the molds to prevent the section from separating, as the hydrostatic pressure of the molten metal presses the cope upward. So this is the process of the molding. Now we are coming to the core. Core is used to make internal cavities in a casting. So the internal cavities can be made by using the core, and the core is positioned in core print of the mold, and it is held in its place by using metal support. Those metal supports are called chaplet. Okay, now this is about core. Core is the full scale model of the internal surface of the part is known as core. It is inserted into the mold cavity prior to the pouring. The molten metal flows and solidifies between the mold cavity and the core to form the casting of external and internal surface. So that core may require support to hold in the position of the mold cavity, and this holding in position can be done by using metal support, that is called chaplets. Now core print and core box. Core is a sand shape that inserted into the mold to produce internal feature of the casting, such as hole or passage of water cooling. And core print are the region which is added to the pattern, core or mold, which is used to locate and support the core within the mold. So main function of the core print is to mm, is to locate support or is to locate and support the core within the mold. And the core box is the box is the mold or die that is used to make our casting cores. So now we will see about the function of the cores. The function of the cores are the cores are used to form internal cavities. First, cores are used to form a part of Greensand mold. Used to form a part of Greensand mold. Cores are used to strengthen the mold, and the cores are used as a part of getting system. These are the function of the core. So that's it about mold making and mold making and core prints. So that is it. These are the functions, and these cores are supported by the chaplet, and there is another term that is called chills. Chills mainly used. These are not related to core, but in some MCQ question you may found that there is a option like chill. So why chills are used? These chills are used for directional solidification. So these chills are used as a cooling member of the casting. So chills are also a metal part. So you may confuse between chills and chaplet. So chills are a metal part which is used to fast cool the molten material. So for fast cooling of the molten material, chills are used. But for supporting the core in its place, that support can be given by the metal object, and those metal objects or those metal supports are known as chaplets. So that's it. Thank you. Hope you enjoy this lecture. And if you have any problem, you may ask in the live class. Thank you.